Okay, so welcome everybody. Just most of you know us, but Kathy and I are the co-chairs of the Faith and Public Policy Committee. For those who are not familiar with it, the Faith and Public Policy Committee is a group in our church that basically is tasked with finding, setting up events, forums, discussions that deal with issues of concern that connect public policy sort of education about the issues and then perhaps leading to action on a variety of mostly controversial subjects, not always. We have a blue and a red co-chair. Kathy is the blue co-chair. I'm the red co-chair. And I'm hosting today because Kathy has she's on the Lewinsville account, so she'll be doing the technical work and I'll be doing, but normally when we have an event, the co-hosts are equally moderating or presenting, whatever, hosting. So anyway, with that, I don't want to spend a lot of time on us. I want to spend a lot of time on our guests. So I'll just quickly run through who everybody is, and then Scott will do start us with a blessing. So we have the Drainsville Supervisor, John Faust, who's going to give an overall picture of the COVID responses and things that are going on in our area. Janera Peck is going to be speaking for the Virginia 30-Day Fund. Pete Snyder had to attend another event this morning, and I'll let her describe what that is, but that's it's helping small businesses who are very severely hurt by this. Jorge Figueiredo, who is with the Edu Futuro, I hope I said that correctly. He will tell us about that organization. Rini Rulin with the Share, and Dave Porterfield at the end, who's with our Mission and Service, will give us sort of what the Lewinsville Church is doing or could do or might want to do related to this. So with that, I just want to go right ahead. Scott.
Well, I want to thank Kathy and Jill and the Faith and Public Policy Committee for organizing this, and want to thank all of you all for being here, especially those of you who are speakers this morning. We're really honored to have you with us as we think through this important and challenging time we find ourselves in. Let's open in prayer. Almighty and living God, we praise you for your glory, for your beauty, for your kindness, and for your attentiveness to those who are most in need. We thank you for the faith that you give us that enables us to engage difficult and challenging issues in our time, to engage them with honesty, to engage them with openness, and to engage them with courage. We pray that you would bless this conversation this morning, that you would use it for the strengthening of the mission of the church and for the upbuilding and moving us towards your world of peace, health, and well-being and justice. All of these things we pray in your holy name. Amen.
Amen. Thank you, Scott. Wonderful. Okay, well, let's get started right away. Mr. Faust, would you start us? Oh, unmute. Kathy, you have to unmute him.
Can you hear me?
There, okay.
Here we go. So anyway, thank you, Jill, very much. And thank you to the organizers for inviting me, and Lewinsville Presbyterian for not only this event, but everything that you do for our community. It doesn't go unnoticed, and it's very much appreciated. Today, I'd like to provide the overview that Jill mentioned of how the county is responding to the COVID-19 problems that we're facing, and especially focus on some of the more vulnerable populations that we have in the county, such as people of color, immigrants, and elderly. Most of what we're doing is pretty unprecedented. I was on the board in 2009 and 10 when we dealt with the Great Recession. That was different. It was about the economy almost exclusively. The health issue was not superimposed. This, with the health issue and the economy, is really unprecedented and a challenge. And it snuck up on us. In February, we had an advertised budget that was probably the first budget since I've been on the board in 2008, where I felt like we were really gonna, touch all the bases. We were increasing investments in human services and housing and, being able to fully fund the schools. We were going to fully fund the pay raises for our employees, which has been kind of hot and cold over the last several years. And we're excited. We're getting to do the things that I got into this business to do. And then COVID-19 came along and we had to redo our budget, our advertised budget, basically trying to hold our own in terms of not letting our employees, keeping our employees employed, continue to fund the most essential and critical services, but not expanding anything other than some of the moving some money to programs we knew would be most significantly impacted by COVID. So that in May we adopted that budget, and that's what we're working with. I grew up in a small town in Western Pennsylvania where everything was fine until steel mills closed, and then the economy just went south. And I've lived, like many of you, through recessions and hard economic times. Nothing compares to what we're dealing with right now. In terms of the numbers of lost jobs and the closed businesses and the challenges that people are having, it's just staggering. So, and what's really sad is that COVID-19 has had a very disproportionate impact on marginalized communities. In particular, the Hispanic community represents about, I think 17% of the population of Fairfax County. They represent about 65% of the COVID cases that we have experienced. And I'll talk in a minute why the experts think what partially explains that. Certainly doesn't have anything to do with the fact that they're Hispanic or the elderly. And on the other hand, the fact that they are elderly makes us more susceptible. And we've had a real serious problem in the assisted living facilities where, a lot of people who get the disease do not survive the disease. We've had that most of our deaths have occurred in those facilities. So as of June 12th, the county has had 13,000 cases of the virus. About 1,500 people have been hospitalized, and unfortunately, 435 have died. I mentioned the disproportionate impact on the Hispanic community, and the experts think in large measure that's because greater exposure to the virus because of the jobs that they have are typically working in our economy. Not just Hispanic, but anyone with a low, who's maybe in lower income can't afford to take days off, and so they go to work when they're sick or someone else they work with is sick, and the circumstances that they live in. Some lower income people will find that they're much more crowded. They can't isolate. So it's been very difficult and almost heartbreaking to see what's happening. And we're focused on that. I mean, we're trying to do something about it. The county's priority is the health side of this. We are very concerned about the economy, but we want to make sure that we move into that we open things up carefully, and that we don't add to the problem by moving too rapidly. Some of the steps that I'd like to describe, some of the steps the county's taken. Mostly amazing cooperation with the community and with particularly the nonprofits, local businesses, and so forth. And some of the programs we've adopted and implemented while kind of new or have been very, either they have been effective or I think they will be helping us get out of this quagmire. We have received, thank you, federal government, a little bit over $200 million in the Coronavirus Aid, Relief, and Economic Security Act funding. They call it the CARES Act. I'm sure you know that. So that money is intended to address the problems caused by the virus. It is not permitted to use that money to replace other money that we've lost. As you might imagine, our sales tax revenues, our business professional occupancy license revenues, anything that has to do transit occupancy tax, hotel tax, anything that has to do with a vibrant economy, the revenues are down dramatically. So we can't replace those revenues. We have to use this money to address COVID-related problems. As of June, early June, the county, out of the 200 million, we had committed, not spent, but committed 111 million. It was allocated various programs and various expenditures. Examples would include we set aside $20 million for the nonprofits that are our partners in the safety net, the social safety net. That $20 million has been delivered to them and they are responsible for getting it out to the people who need relief, rent relief, utilities, food, healthcare costs, people who are, lost their jobs and are desperate for assistance. That's $20 million that they are distributing. We also set aside or dedicated $5 million for those nonprofits and not other nonprofits who are part of the social safety net to apply for as grants so that they can, it's one thing to be delivering services, but they also are like businesses. They have rent, they have employees. So this $5 million is to keep them going. We've also created a really, I think, one of the best in the area, grant programs for small business. We call it the Fairfax Relief Initiative to support employers, which gives you Fairfax RISE as the acronym, RISE. It's $25 million of the CARE money. It's a program to assist small businesses and nonprofits. So nonprofits that are part of the social safety net are going to get funded through the program, the $5 million program I talked to you about. There's so many other nonprofits in the area that aren't social safety net, but they employ people and they're part of our economy. They and small businesses, 50 or fewer employees, are eligible for these $25 million in grants. 30% of that $25 million, which is $7.5 million, is dedicated to minority, veteran, and women-owned businesses. So the grant applications will close this Monday, June 15th. And this is amazing. We've already received over 5,000 expressions of interest. The process is to demonstrate your interest, and then certain numbers will get selected basically at random, or whatever the proper term is, lottery, to actually go the next step to be considered for the grant. It's going to be so oversubscribed, this 25 million. I strongly believe that we need to add money to the program. And we will talk about that probably this week at our Economic Initiatives Committee meeting. So that's a good program. It's going to help our small businesses and our nonprofits survive. It's not going to make it. It's still going to be tough. It is so tough when you don't have revenues coming in and money going out. So we got that. We also have many public health initiatives that we're using CARES money for. the health department's response to this has been very impressive. There are basically, they're sending in teams, rapid response teams to all the elderly homes, the assisted living facilities, helping those people figure out how to avoid getting the virus and helping them, for example, how to use their PPE, their personal protective equipment, things like that. We have targeted those senior centers or senior assisted living facilities because of the challenges there. With testing. That is so important, in my opinion, and I think I'm not alone in this. We need a lot more testing. But right now, given the limitations that are out there, the health department is focusing the testing resources that we can get on those most vulnerable communities. So, for example, I think it was 2 weeks ago, there were 2 days of free testing in very low-income neighborhoods. Thousands of people showed up. The second day, people started arriving at 4 a.m. For these tests. It shows you the need. It's desperate. Excuse me. So that and then that didn't go over. That didn't work so well because the word got out that these and just thousands of people showed up, and we couldn't come close to testing them all. So now the health department is doing more targeted, very neighborhood specific advertising, the testing on more of a low key, directly concentrated effort, focused on those communities that need it the most. So that's the testing. We also, the health department tells us that the key to all this is contact tracing. And so we just entered a contract for contact tracers. We're going to hire the contractor is going to hire 330 people to, when we find out someone's been exposed, find out who they've been in contact with. Then you have to reach out to them and try to convince them to isolate until the time has passed. It's apparently a tried and true technique in public health. It's so labor intensive. It's amazing. So we have that. Also, isolation for a lot of populations is next to impossible. You live in a 2-bedroom apartment with 6 people. How do you isolate? So we are spending a lot, some of the CARES money on hotel rooms. As you can imagine, there's a lot of vacancy right now. It's not hard to find an empty hotel room. So we've entered a contract for 312 hotel rooms, have them under contract, and for people who need to isolate but can't in their own environment, we will make these hotel rooms available to them. And we're going to add to that number because, as we have all these new contact tracers, we're going to identify a lot of people who are going to need that type of assistance. So that's another way we're spending the CARES money. There was another small business program that we've supported. It was a micro loan program. It was made $2.5 million available. And I mean, from the get-go, I said, this is crazy. We're going to be so oversubscribed. And it was. I mean, it was ridiculous. We're going to push out the 2.5 million, but that was all that helped demonstrate to the board that, hey, we got to go to the grant program and we got to really fund this with some serious money. So those loans, they're being processed, and they're no interest loans, and they're, again, for employers, businesses, not nonprofits, businesses that have 50 or fewer employees. Another thing we've done is set up a reserve for the pandemic. We had some money left over at third quarter that we were going to invest in infrastructure items. Third quarter is when we take a look at our current budget and see what it looks like going to the end of the year. Are we going to have money left over? And yeah, we were going to have money left over. So what we decided to do was put that money into a reserve. And then when we did the budget in May for next year, we projected about almost $10 million surplus, which we also put into this reserve. So in total, it's about $20 million that we're going to use to help get through the COVID challenges and spend it on things that don't qualify under the CARES Act. So there are so many limitations on the CARES Act that we can't cover all the needs that we have. This reserve will help do that. We're going to, for example, we've got a program right now where there are many people with language barriers, mixed legal status. Someone's married to an undocumented person, even though they're a citizen. They don't qualify for relief under CARES and other types of situations where you don't fit in to that CARES Act funding. So we are working with nonprofits now, with 3 of them, where we're making some of this county money, non-CARES Act money, available to provide assistance to the people who are otherwise not eligible. So I'm not sure I meant to keep track of my time, but I didn't. So I think I'm.
You have 2 minutes.
Good.
2 minutes.
I appreciate that. So, you know, I really do appreciate this. It's so important to keep the information getting out there. You know, you can become an expert on this today, and tomorrow you feel like you're starting over because things change so rapidly. But you know, events like this and the interest that you're showing are so important. You know, the way I would like to end is, you know, this could be very depressing if we let it, but we can't let it. We got to take positive attitude. We got to get through this. And how do you maintain that positive attitude? You just look around and you see how this community has come together and how we're working as a team to deal with these challenges. Recently, we had a Stuff the Bus food drive that across the county, we gathered 33 tons of food. That's the type of stuff that, you know, we're stepping up and doing. And, you know, we all should be very proud of the way we're coming together and dealing with this. Another little story that I love, there's a student over at Cooper Middle School, a student who has made herself 225 masks for first responders and healthcare workers. It's just 2 small examples of what's happening across the region. And so, you know, pat yourself on the back. We'll get through this. And thank you so much for giving me this opportunity.
Thank you, John. I love that you end on a positive, optimistic note. That's really, attitude is so much in any situation, and that is a really fabulous way to end that. So thank you so much. And just a note to everybody, we're going to have Q&A after everybody speaks. We're going to have a little 5-minute break after everybody speaks in case you have to get up and, you know, do anything. And then we'll have questions. So if you have questions for Supervisor Faust, please hang on to those. So our next speaker is Janera Peck. We had listed Pete Snyder, who is the founder of the Virginia 30-Day Fund, but he is in the midst of a large event this morning, and Janera is one of the, you know, also founders, I think, of the group, so she is well qualified to speak. So you have 10 minutes, Janera. I'll give you a 2-minute warning in the chat.
Great. Thank you, Jill, and thank you to everyone for having us on this morning. Hello from Richmond this morning, and we're really privileged to be able to talk a little bit about the activities, mission, and work of the Virginia 30-Day Fund. As Jill mentioned, the 30-Day Fund was founded by Pete Snyder and his wife, Burson, who have deep roots in Northern Virginia, now reside in Charlottesville. Pete is a technology entrepreneur and has continued as a angel investor and has always sort of has had a heart for small business. And that really was the mission and the driving vision behind this. I sit on the national board for the 30-Day Fund, and I've been working with Pete since March to get this going. But in short, the 30-Day Fund is a forgivable loan that essentially equates to a grant for small businesses, 3 to 30 employees who do business and are operated in the Commonwealth of Virginia and are simply in need due to the COVID crisis. As many of you know, most small businesses have about 2 weeks or so of capital available to help survive any crisis. Certainly, that's not what we were facing with the COVID crisis. And Pete and his wife Burson kind of said, what can we do? What are we equipped to do as private citizens, as entrepreneurs who know the struggles of small business and at all stages? And, you know, like many of us, they were maybe adding a little tip extra on their takeout order to support a local restaurant. They were doing what they could in their community, but they sat back and they said, what else can we do? What can the private sector do to help mobilize and help these small businesses survive? The biggest fear, of course, is that these small businesses without that bridge capital would disappear and there would be no small business economy to return to. So we developed this idea, Pete and Burson and a handful of folks from across the Commonwealth, that $3,000 for a small business, 3 to 30 employees, would help keep people on the payroll, protect small business jobs, protect healthcare, and just allow them to keep their doors open for maybe just a little longer. And if we can get them through that, then the federal cavalry, if you will, might be able to come through the PPP loans and other components that took a little bit of time. So Pete and Burson very generously seeded the fund, the Virginia 30-Day Fund, and we got going. Very early on, though, Pete said, well, what is a forgivable loan, right? And after talking to many folks across the Commonwealth, what he decided is that, you know, these entrepreneurs are proud. They don't want necessarily a grant without any expectation of repayment. But at the same time, no one wanted to put that burden on a small business that was struggling. So he and others came up with the idea of pay it forward. So if you are able to recover as a recipient of the 30-Day Fund and you can get back on your feet, we ask you to help another small business in need. It could be tomorrow, it could be in 6 months, it could be in 5 years. There's always going to be need based upon crises that are facing different corners of our Commonwealth. So this pay it forward idea started. We launched on a Monday, and we said on Sunday night as we were getting ready, we said, you know, if we get 100 applications, maybe we will, maybe we have something here. That was kind of our indicator. The next day we were flooded with hundreds of applications. One of the components of the application is a video. It's a very simple application. It's name, verify your business, what you do, how you'll use the money. Very simple, no red tape by design. And then the video is this opportunity to hear a little bit about the entrepreneur's heart, their service to their community, what they're doing to keep their employees in place. And honestly, it's really hard to watch many of these without choking up a little bit. We've heard stories of entrepreneurs and small business owners who are drawing down from their own retirement just to keep someone on the payroll to make sure that they're able to keep healthcare in place for their family. We've heard stories of entrepreneurs who are going into debt themselves to make sure that they're able to keep their business open and provide a critical service for their community. It's been a remarkable opportunity to hear these stories. And if nothing else, much like the supervisor just said, there's been a lot of inspiration that's come from this. The grit and the determination, as I think we've all witnessed in many areas of our community, has been remarkable, but particularly the small business community and what they've done to survive these very uncertain times when they don't have access to large credit facilities that publicly traded companies have. They don't have access to some of the financing tools that other companies might have access to. And in some cases, many of these small businesses didn't have the infrastructure to understand and pursue the PPP opportunity either. They were just focused on, how do I keep my doors open? So through this entire process, we've made grants, forgivable loans to hundreds of small businesses in every corner of Virginia. There have been some remarkable stories that I would encourage you to go to our website to take a look at, virginia30day.fund.com. And there's been incredible generosity from our fellow Virginians. The number of times that I, log on to our website and see our updates and see $3 donations from someone who happened to see a story about this on their local news station, or even larger, more generous donations. Last week, we received a really exciting announcement from the Harvest Foundation that's based in Southern Virginia, announcing $1 million contribution to help the small businesses in Martinsville and Henry County. And incredible stuff from all corners. We were very privileged to enter into an agreement with the Fairfax NAACP, where we were able to make sure that we were serving Fairfax NAACP identified businesses, and I've had a great deal of success there. We worked with a number of leaders in Williamsburg and on the peninsula and have a targeted program there. And the response from across the board, people of all political and policy stripes, all business and community engagement, has really been remarkable. And it's been a wonderful thing to be involved in, to see this immediate direct impact response from the private sector. In addition to Virginia, we also saw strong interest from across the country. I mean, we kind of thought it was possible, but we had no idea the number of calls we would get. We've launched state funds in Pennsylvania, Arkansas, Mississippi. Governor Chris Christie, former governor of New Jersey, just launched. Yeah.
2-minute warning. No, a 2-minute warning.
Okay. Governor Chris Christie and his wife, Mary Pat, actually just launched the New Jersey 30-day fund in New Jersey yesterday. And the reason they heard about it, this is amazing how the world works. Governor Christie's wife, Mary Pat's niece, and her husband, they were a recipient for their small business in Northern Virginia. And they were one of our very first pay it forward stories. So they were able to shore up their business very quickly and worked really hard to do so. The grant was able to get them to a place where they had the ability to do so. They paid it forward within weeks. And it's been a remarkable opportunity to fund these 270 plus businesses in Virginia. Help secure, we don't say save, we say help secure thousands of jobs. And there's a lot more work to be done. The need is great, and the response has been tremendous. So with that, I'll pause here, but I'm eager to stay on and answer questions and appreciate the opportunity to come and talk about this project. It's been a volunteer project that's kind of felt like an additional full-time job, but I've loved every second of it, and really very appreciative of your interest in the program. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Janera. Thank you for all of you who've done that. And yes, thank you for staying on. I know you have to leave at 10:30, but we'll have the question and answer period. I think you'll still be able to be on for that. Thank you. So our next speaker, Jorge Figueiredo, okay, with EduFuturo. I hope I said that correctly. Yes. Okay. So I'm gonna give you a 2-minute warning. You have 10 minutes. So I don't want to interrupt, but I just want to let you know I'm going to do that. So please go right ahead.
Thank you. Good morning, everybody. We thank you so much for inviting me this morning to participate at this important event. EduFuturo is a nonprofit organization that for the past 22 years has focused on breaking the cycle of poverty through a 2-generation approach, supporting low-income and immigrant students from elementary school until they complete college and join the workforce, and their parents with family engagement, case management, and workforce development. Since March 23rd, we began systematically calling each one of the 1,700 beneficiaries in our database to reassure them that EduFuturo was there to support them and to conduct a brief needs assessment to give us an idea of the most pressing needs in each household. We ask about health, job loss, the need for rental assistance, and internet connectivity. Most importantly, we use the needs assessment to identify families with immediate and urgent needs who do not know how to access the Northern Virginia local safety net. These calls were heartbreaking, and the individual stories just kept getting worse as more jobs were lost and families began to realize that they were on their own. I brought up the findings to my board, and after reacting very quickly with the guidance of council, we set up an emergency assistance fund and revamped our individual case management. As of June 9, we have reached 722 families, and of those, we are currently handling 432 cases with the support of local governments and other nonprofit partners. Out of those 432 families, 250 are residents of Fairfax County. Of these 250 residents, 83% have lost their jobs due to COVID-19. 81% are struggling to pay their monthly rent, and 76% need assistance with food, utilities, or other services. With our emergency assistance fund, we are not competing with resources that are available through Fairfax or other nonprofits, but to help fill the gap for members of our community who otherwise will fall through the cracks of our local safety net. Some of our beneficiaries are afraid to request emergency assistance for some of the following reasons. They do not have the literacy or technical skills to gather and upload documents on websites. They do not qualify to receive supplemental income from the CARES Act due to an unresolved immigration status. They are afraid of requesting assistance from local governments or other nonprofits because they fear the consequences of the public charge rule, and they do not want to jeopardize their ability to apply for US citizenship. Out of these 250 families who need services, 130 or 52% of these cases have been resolved for the time being, while the remaining cases are still in progress. This crisis has demonstrated the critical need for increasing skilled, bilingual, and culturally sensitive services in response to the people of color affected by COVID-19. In late April, one of our parent support specialists learned of a young Hispanic father in Herndon who tested positive for COVID-19, who at the moment of the disruption was living with his whole family in the apartment of a friend because they could not qualify to buy a townhouse. The two families were put in quarantine for 2 weeks, living in the same 2-bedroom apartment with a total of 11 persons, including 7 children, 2 of whom are babies, 11 and 3 months old. When we discovered this situation, the 11-month-old baby already had a fever. We informed the Fairfax County Health Department, the Neighborhood Community Services, and the Fairfax County Public Schools. Since all 4 adults could not work due to the quarantine and loss of jobs, EduFuturo covered nearly $2,000 in rent and utilities for the month of May, while they were receiving additional support from other service providers. Because at this point, Fairfax County didn't have hotels to isolate the young father, 5 more members of the family showed COVID-19 symptoms, but only 1 was tested. The good news is that after a successful quarantine, all of them have fully recovered. In another case, we found a single mother with 3 children who lost her job and cannot pay the rent and does not qualify for unemployment insurance. In another case, we found also a family where the father had a stroke in December of 2019 and lost his ability to speak, and part of his vision. His wife became the household breadwinner, but she lost her job of cleaning houses as a result of COVID-19. The family is affiliated with the community clinic in Bailey's Crossroads, but they do not have health insurance, and the father has not received any treatment or therapy after his stroke. The parents have unresolved immigration status, but their 2 sons are US-born citizens. The youngest son is attending Justice High School, and the oldest son is in the 2nd semester of auto mechanics at Nova, who just lost his part-time job due to the crisis. He was planning to abandon his studies because the family lacked of reliable internet service. Through our emergency fund, we paid 3 months of internet service with a larger broadband, and the 2 young students were able to continue studying through distance learning. Now, EduFuturo is providing case management to this family and other service providers, and we are in the progress of helping address different challenges that they are facing. As you know, nearly 32% of the Fairfax County population is foreign-born, and some 200,000 people are Hispanic. Like Supervisor Faust mentioned, in Fairfax County, while the population of the Latino Hispanic community is 16.5%, the confirmed Latino share for COVID-19 cases is 66.2%. In addition to exposing a significant public health disparities for immigrant families in Northern Virginia, the Virginia Department of Health and Statistics also demonstrate how quickly the COVID-19 has affected the region's Latino community. On May 14th, for example, in Fairfax, Alexandria, Prince William, and Arlington, the counted cases were 5,679. And on June 6th, the number had doubled to 11,000. The African American community has also been affected by COVID-19. It's 7.9% in Fairfax, 14.6% in Prince William, 18.5% in Alexandria, and 10.6% in Arlington. What this emergency, as you know, is a major demonstration of one of the main reasons.
You have 2 minutes, Jorge. Didn't want to interrupt. Go ahead.
This is an emergency that is demonstrating to all of us that this is one of the reasons why the One Fairfax policy was instituted in the county, to ensure that organizations that best represent their communities have the resources needed to respond quickly in times of extraordinary stress and urgency. If there is anything that this crisis is teaching all of us, is that business as usual is just not good enough, and that precious resources need to be distributed with foresight and equity. The response of the county has to address the needs of all Fairfax County residents, and these families are desperate. They need full coverage of emergency assistance for rent and utilities to keep these families stable and away from a family economic crisis. We are facing a public health and a financial crisis, and the novel coronavirus does not distinguish between immigration status, race, or ethnicity. Now that Governor Northam is driving the effort to reopen Virginia and the local economies, government officials throughout Northern Virginia need to pay urgent attention to how the coronavirus is affecting low-income families and people of color. The need to restart business activities should not outweigh the critical importance of continuing protecting the health of all Fairfax County workers and their children. Thank you.
Well, thank you very much. That's a lot of interesting facts there. We appreciate that so much. Thank you. And of course, you'll be around to answer questions. So we will move on to our own Rini Rulin, who will talk about something that's more local to all of us, the SHARE program. Rini, you have 10 minutes. I'll give you a 2-minute warning.
Okay, terrific. Can everybody hear me first?
Yes.
I'm not as experienced at this as you guys are. And thank you for including us. Lewinsville is spectacular in their support of SHARE, and we greatly appreciate it. On March 17th, we started distributing pre-packed boxes during the usual pantry hours. As we did before pre-COVID, the pantries open from 9:30 to noon on Wednesday and Saturdays. These boxes, and as before, are only intended to be supplemental, not the primary source of food to our clients. Originally, we were allowing, as usual, to clients to come twice a month to collect foods. We've now bumped that up to 3 times a month because school's out and there's a lot more need. And the crisis is continuing. Pantries, lotters, all of ours they're getting lighter. 2 program leads pack these boxes the day before a pantry opening. 2 ladies do that. It takes hours to fill 50 boxes at a pop, if not more. Each box is intended to cover 2 people. The number of boxes each group gets depends on how large their family group is, and our largest family group is 10. A typical box includes items to supplement the 3 meals a day and are to cover 2 weeks, at least half a month. We're averaging 100 families coming through each week. So between Wednesday and Saturday, that's 100 cars that are coming through our lines. From March 17th through May, we've provided almost 1,900 boxes, and that doesn't count our senior population. These boxes include, on a rotating basis, so as to try to keep boredom at a minimum, rice, pasta, red sauce or a tomato product, oatmeal, cereal, ramen, soup, a canned protein, macaroni and cheese, peanut butter and jelly, veggies, canned veggies, dried or canned beans, and any sweets we happen to have on hand. Girl Scout cookies are a huge hit, as are granola bars. And every box gets a roll of toilet paper. Once these boxes are packed, they're moved into our trucks in the upper lot and then moved to the lower lot at McLean Baptist, which gives us the space to operate. Cars come in one entrance of the McLean Baptist parking lot and exit out another. When they come in, they check in and they're verified by an iPad, and then they get into a line. The proper number of boxes is afforded to each car at that time, and then they continue down the line. There's a place to collect diapers and wipes, if that's applicable to your family. There is a miscellaneous table which will have meats that are purchased by Share or donated, bread that is donated by Walmart or Giant. And recently we're now collecting donated bagels from Chesapeake Bagel. And then there are eggs. This month is Oral Care Month. We do that quarterly, so they're able to pick up toothbrushes and toothpaste. Soon we'll have, we have in the works a produce station with fresh produce that's coming out of community and private gardens. Pre-COVID, we were seeing 20 to 40 clients at each opening. Now we're seeing 50 or more. Last month, we did have one opening where we saw 65 cars come through our lot. We're seeing more out of area because everybody has their own jurisdiction, depending on their address. We're seeing many more out of area, out of region clients, and they're pantry shopping and they need us because of the change in their job status. The out of area guests that are coming through are afforded boxes that one time, and then they're referred to their local pantries. The senior situation has turned into a gift. It has been determined through trial and error since the 17th of March that it's easiest to just deliver in bulk to the Lewinsville and to the Falstead. Rather than giving them individual boxes, we just deliver mass product, and then the staff at these two facilities deliver to our seniors. And it has been suggested to one of the coordinators, and I think it was LRR, I think Don McLean, Don Frickle's on the line also, but it was suggested to one of our program leads that this has helped to keep LRR and the Falstead thus far COVID free, because it helps to keep them home and safe. We've seen an amazing outpouring of volunteer and assistance. We've got swim clubs, book clubs, neighborhood groups, families, sporting groups, just to name a few. Domino's, a couple of weeks ago, donated 100 pizzas so clients could take fresh pizzas home and have a nice treat. We have people coming out of the woodwork that want to and need to help their neighbors. These new groups are doing a fantastic job in filling holes that were previously not there. They're shopping with gift cards that are donated. They're picking up donations like Chesapeake Bagel and Walmart's bakery items. They're packing trucks with the boxes, and they're doing some delivery to some of our sick clients. If anything, this is a this is a good problem in that we have a huge outpouring of volunteer effort, but the problem is managing this enthusiasm while maintaining social distancing guidelines. Share spending a lot more money because we have to shop for items that aren't coming into the pantries. Then so that is a problem. As far as our needs go in the food pantry, we could use a couple of covers. They suggested one. I always go for two because I'm a twofer. But those 8x8 collapsible folding umbrella style, we're coming into the summer. It's going to be 100 degrees outside. If we can keep the meat, the eggs that are purchased by the pantry, the fresh produce out of the sun in the morning, that would be fantastic. And then there's your occasional rain. It'd be nice. And we have no idea how long this is going to go. So it would be nice to not be in the elements, but something that would be fast and simple to put up, put down, and then store in the limited space that has been so generously donated by McLean Baptist. Gift cards are wonderful, wonderful, but we could really use more product delivered to share. Redeemer Lutheran is also accepting gifts. You can go to the website and look, McLean, shareofmclean.com, and go to Lutheran Church Redeemer, push their button, and someone will come out and take any donations that are there. But it would be nice to get the food donations. Our shoppers are going into the store.
2 minutes, Rini.
Okay, so
Okay, 2 minutes.
So we could use pastas, sauces, everything that I mentioned prior, laundry soap, canned proteins, crackers, mashed potatoes. The seniors love mashed potatoes. Diapers, 6 and 7. We don't have any tiny infants in-house right now or coming down the line. Gardeners, contact us. We have a point person. So anybody that's got produce that they would like to donate, we're going to have 2 gardens at elementary schools that I just say that I'm trying to get off so much in right now. Wednesday and Saturday mornings. Ice packs. If you have any of those frozen ice packs that you get with those delivered meals, we could use those to keep our meats and eggs and produce cooler in the summer months. Proteins, or we're purchasing those at Walmart and Costco in the packages so that we can actually give out individual packages and they help to take care. Family assistance. We have seen, we were averaging 40 requests pre-COVID. We now and outlaying $12,000 a month. This is to cover rent, utilities, medicine. We are now seeing 100 a week, and we've thus far averaging $60,000 a month. The county is referring to us 140% more than this time last year, people that need assistance. The CARES Act is fantastic for those that it's going to work for, but the federal guidelines are so stringent, it requires a client to justify that it's their situation is COVID impacted. They have given us $200,000. That's fantastic. Thus far, we've only been able to meet 6 needs with that money. Again, the community has been fantastic. The client's needs are being met. They are humble, they are gracious, they are grateful for everything they are giving. They are flexing and adapting as we are. Family assistance is doing the best that they can, going great guns with what they have. Dealing with money is funny and it's hard. They're doing the best that they can in fostering the donations in the most generous and responsible manner. The community impact, I'm going as fast as I can, 2 more seconds. The community has been tremendous. Their contribution and their volunteer effort has been amazing. And Don Frickel, president of SHARE, said it best this past week to me. He is humbled. We are all humbled by the generosity of this community in particular. The trust that this community gives to SHARE in fostering their treasure, and the generosity of spirit is amazing. And I can't thank you enough for inviting me to do this morning. Thank you.
Very happy to hear this, Rini. Thank you for all you do. That is amazing. I learned some new things. I didn't realize you need ice packs and things like that. But so you'll be on to answer questions, either both of you, when we finish this up. Okay, excellent. I'm sorry to rush you. I just want to make sure we do have time for questions.
I understand.
So we right now have also Dave Porterfield. You get 10 minutes to talk about what the LPC Mission and Service has done, is doing, is planning to do. After, I'll give you a 2-minute warning, Dave. If you don't use the whole 10 minutes, that's fine. Right after you're done, we'll take a 5-minute break, and then we'll be back for questions for everybody. And I do ask that you start with Janera if you have any questions, because she has a hard stop at a 10:30 phone call. So Dave, go ahead.
So I'm the only thing that stands between you and a break. Good. Just really 3 points I want to make about mission and service. We continue to work. We have about 20 or so local partners. We call them partners that we work with. We do that year in, year out. And we've worked hard to connect with those partners more, to try to assess their needs, to try to do what they see what their needs are and help them out. One of the things that the church has done is put an addition to the website where you can go and there's a drop down and you can make direct donations to many or any of those partners through the website. When you do that, that money goes directly to the organization. It does not stay with Louisville. Louisville takes no part of it. It goes directly to support that organization. One of the other things that I would focus on about mission service is it's not just distribution of money. We work very hard to make sure that there's a commitment from the church to participate, to be involved in that service. Rini is a great example of that, and that's Cher has been one of our partners for a very, very long time. So that's part of what we do. It's not just the money, it's also the people involvement, trying to work with the people. The final thing that I would say that is probably to me has been the most moving is above and beyond, independent of mission service. Louisville runs the Deacons Fund. Most of you know, most of the people on are members, but most of you know that the Deacons Fund is collected after communion services. That is a discretionary fund for the deacons and for the pastors to use as they deem necessary. The first thing that's important about that is the response the congregation has had to the Deacons Fund. There was an expectation it would sort of drop off during COVID since we're not worshiping together. It's been just the opposite. It's gone up dramatically. Those funds have been able to go directly to several of our partners and supplement what mission service is already doing. So my message is to continue that, but my message is of thanks to the congregation, to the people of Louisville for sort of stepping in and helping that fund so that those organizations can be funded better. Jill, that's my.
Okay.
I yield back if I can use the correct terms, I yield back my remaining minutes.
Thank you, Dave. That is fabulous. And we always have time for Q&A afterwards. So really appreciate it. And thank you for all Mission and Service is doing. Faith and Public Policy is kind of connected there, but we really love that. Okay, we're going to take a 5-minute break, and then I see there's a question in chat, and Janera will answer that more fully when the Q&A starts. But thank you, Jerry. She will begin with that Q&A. But let's all take if people are okay with a 4-minute break, is 4 minutes enough? If 4 minutes is enough, we'll do a 4-minute break. That brings us back at 10:09. So everybody go grab more coffee or tea or whatever. And at 10:09, we'll start up again. And then Janera will answer the first question. Thank you, Jane, for that question in the chat. And thank you, Jerry. but she'll expound upon that a little bit more. So see y'all in at 10:09. And thank you, Dave. All right, great. Well, let's get started with the questions. The first one we have for Janera, why is it called the 30-Day Fund? And yes, yes, Jerry answered a little bit, but Janera, would you want to, expand that description?
Thanks, Jill, and thanks for the question. It's called the 30-Day Fund because the idea is for most small businesses, they need to survive that 30 days to be able to access PPP or some other relief, or be able to open with, inching toward normalcy, whatever you want to begin to call it. It's really meant to be a bridge, right? How do we help those businesses that are normally set up to survive 2 weeks, right? To survive a little bit longer in this period. And then someone mentioned too that Governor Christie in New Jersey set up a similar fund. That's right. We have taken the Virginia model and have been approached by people across the country. We have funds in Mississippi, Arkansas, Pennsylvania, Georgia, New Jersey, and Colorado is coming online next week. The reason I have to go at 10:30 is because I have another state I need to talk to who wants to start another fund in their state. So it's kind of taken on this life of its own, and in our view, every one more business that we're helping, it's worth every ounce of time, effort, and work to enter these new states. But thanks for the question. I hope that's helpful.
Janera, I just wanted, I was talking to Pete a few weeks back, and wasn't there, you were kicking around the idea of moving it to the 100-Day Fund, and then, because it's been way more than 30 days.
Yeah, I thought at the beginning, we heard these outpouring of need and just these stories that will just break your heart and inspire you at the same time. I thought, 30 days in, the stories might be changing a little bit. I live in Richmond, and there's been a ton of destruction in downtown Richmond to businesses that were just beginning to recover. We dedicated $100,000 of the fund to helping those businesses that have had their property damaged to reopen. One of the businesses we funded in the initial round of the 30-Day Fund. It's a restaurant in downtown Richmond. It's been around forever. They were broken into and had a ton of damage, everything stolen from the facility, and we funded them again because they needed it. So honestly, our goal is to close up shop. We want there not to be, we want to be out of this business for as soon as we can, but the need is still very real. I will say in some of the other states where the reopening has been a little speedier, or they've not gone to, they're already in phase 2, getting ready to go into phase 3. I think those states will close down their funds a little quicker than we will. But you're right. This is not meant to be a long-term thing.
One question for you, then I have a question for Rini. So Janera, Jerry says, you may have said this already, but how many companies have you helped, and how effective is the fund? What percentage did you keep alive?
Yeah, I think I said earlier, and I actually misspoke. I think I said 270 businesses funded in Virginia. It's actually 370 businesses funded in Virginia as of this morning. There's going to be a ton more based upon the recent infusion and grant support for Southern Virginia. We have a ton of support in Northern Virginia, across the Commonwealth. And then how effective is the fund? That's a great question. And I think time will tell some of that. We have been able to count the number of jobs that have been preserved. It's in the thousands of jobs that have been that people are reporting they're able to keep people on the payroll at this point. But the other area we think about what does success look like, right? It's also doing things like connecting them with other resources. There was a dog walking business, a very successful dog walking business in Richmond that was funded. And of course, no one's, going to work anymore and walking their dog. So there were 6 people who business had been booming. We funded them, and then they reached out and said, can you get us in touch with someone who can help us rethink our business model, rethink our marketing plan? And we connected them with a marketing firm that wanted to do some pro bono work for 30-Day Fund businesses. We connected them with some business students. at the University of Virginia's Darden School of Business that's doing the back end vetting for us to help them think through what does a business model look like in a new COVID. So I think success to me is sort of measured across all of those variables.
Excellent. Thank you very much. So I have a question here. Jane asked, Rini, do you prefer gift cards or actual food, paper goods? Does Cher have a preference? You know, which is better? Rini, I think you're muted. Can you unmute? Kathy, can you unmute her?
There we go.
Okay.
Is that better?
Yeah.
Right now, we would prefer food product. Gift cards are lovely, but right now in order to keep our shoppers out of the supermarket with a cartload full of pasta or red sauce, if somebody could please drop off the food product, that would be much more appreciated at this time.
Excellent. I like what you said about now with coolers. You said ice blocks, but do you need coolers like to, you know?
I don't have an answer to that, but I'm guessing that if we have coolers, even the styrofoam ones that post-COVID that we don't have to keep in store for later, those might be appreciated, but I'll get back to you on that. But I'm thinking what they're going to do is they'll put the product in the refrigerators and the freezers we have on site at the church, fill the cooler, and then take it up to the parking lots and distribute from there so that things stay cold and fresh. And if you're going to be doing eggs, I'm not sure how they're doing. Because of my health issues, I've not been down there for 3 months, so I've not been boots on the ground. I do know that right now they're looking for packages of proteins, for instance. If you go to Costco, they come in individual packs. You know, there'll be a breast in a package or 2 breasts per package. Those are greatly appreciated. If you're going to be at the Giant, a larger pack of 4 to 6 breasts are great because then we have families that have that many family members. But the Costco packaging it's spot on for us. But again, coolers, I'll get back to you on that. I think if someone's got a cooler, I could get somebody to go and pick it up today if it's needed. But the ice blocks, definitely.
Okay, excellent. That's something that I would never have thought of. So thank you for that. Jorge, can you talk a little, we have a question here, a little bit more about funding of your organization and a little bit of, do you have a website, for instance, that you can drive people to?
Yes, of course. Our website is www.edu-futuro.org. And I will type it in the chat later so then everybody can have access to it. But yeah, the need is great. I can tell you that we have raised more than $70,000 and we're almost running out of that money. And it's incredible because the funds that we're using, we're not using it directly. We are part of the safety net. So we are going through a process where we directed families first to the call center that Fairfax County has that is set through CSP. And then what we do is that we navigate the clients and the beneficiaries through the process. So then we have instances, for example, where we have a 3-way call where our families are being guided, and we are in that 3-way call translating and helping them with the documents that they need to collect so then they can get the rental assistance. And then through that process, you know, we follow the family until the moment when they receive the funds. As Supervisor Foss said, there are other nonprofits that have received CARES dollars. So then what we do is that we go with them and we make sure that we will not stop working with their family until they don't receive that financial relief. If for whatever reason they don't receive the full amount of money that they need for the rental assistance or utilities or other means, then EduFuturo kicks in with their emergency assistance fund. So that way we are making sure that they are not falling through the cracks and that they get the full support that they need. But the one thing I want to tell you that is very important is that this is a situation that is happening on a month-to-month basis. So just because we help a family in April didn't mean that they have to stop there. Then we have to help them again in May. And then we have to stop and help them again in June. And now July. And this is going to continue until we get to the point that they get employment and they fully recover. So please keep this in mind, because this is something that even if we open the economy and they go back to work, then the challenge that we have is that many of them might get sick again or might get sick for the first time. So that's something that we are aware of. And that's why Edu Futuro has been at the forefront of helping these families. We speak their language, we understand their challenges, we are culturally sensitive, and we just need additional dollars. And believe me, I have been a big advocate for funds from the beginning, and the supervisors have heard us, and we are working in a partnership where Edu Futuro will be soon addressing that. But again, it's just not enough. The one thing I also think is important for everybody to know here is that they don't need partial assistance in the way that we can help work together to make sure that they get all the funds that they need for the rental assistance for every month and utilities. That's very important. Another thing that many people don't realize is that, for example, one of the challenges that we faced at the beginning was that people were not thinking about their cell phones. In many instances, the only access that they have to the internet is their smartphones. So many of these families, we lost them because they didn't pay their cell phone to the cell phone provider, and then we couldn't reach them. So that there are certain things that we had to reprioritize and relearn through this process. And internet access is one of the most important things that we need to keep in mind, and also making sure that these families get the devices that they need so that they can communicate.
Excellent. Okay, great. Thank you for that information. So we have a question for John, Supervisor Faust, from Jerry, which is in the chat. But I want to make sure, because Janera just has a couple minutes left, if anybody has any more questions for her, we'll jump them up. I do have okay, that's to Dave. Okay, we have a couple of questions. If anybody has one, jump in. Otherwise, we have, hold on. Okay, there we go. So Jerry, I'll read Jerry's chat, but like I said, if anybody has another question for Janera, just jump in. John, the list of initiatives from the county is impressive. Thinking what our congregation can do to help, what would you suggest? Would you be able to provide a speaker from the public health group to advise current potential steps that we need to take to avoid or cope with COVID futures? So Jerry, John, if you want to answer that, then we'll have a question for Dave as well.
Yeah.
So, and Janera, if you have to jump off, I just want to thank you, and I hope God bless you for what you're doing.
Thank you all so much, but I'm eager to connect, and Jill's got my information if anyone has any additional questions. But thank you for the opportunity.
Excellent. You're doing good work.
Jill, I also have a question for John, but after somewhere. Okay.
Okay. Do you want to, John, you want to take Jerry's first, and then
Sure.
Adrian can ask?
Yes. I can definitely make someone available to speak to your congregation about precautions and whatever else you want to hear from the health department. I think Jane's on the line, and I will ask her to help me remember that and follow up, and we'll reach out and get someone. Well, your congregation, what can you do? I think Share is a great example of what we can all do. I mean, in any of the nonprofits that are really helping those who are most in need in the community, supporting them. Obviously, I think they probably can use volunteer service, but financially, for those of us who are, have been fortunate enough to keep our jobs and to help in that way would be critical. I love the point that this is not just taking care of the rent in April or May. I mean, this is long term, and we can't, it's not a one-off thing where we can, satisfy ourselves that we did our share by doing something once. This is gonna be with us for I think a very long time. Obviously not, or I hope not as, things won't be as difficult as they currently are, but they're still going to be difficult, especially for people the restaurant they worked at doesn't reopen. There's going to be a lot of those types of businesses, service businesses, retail stores that aren't going to reopen. People are going to be struggling for a long time. So, I mean, kind of get our mindset that this is the new normal for a while. I don't like to say, there is a new normal because I want to go back to the way things were.
Me too. I'm with you.
But for now, there's a new normal, and we've got to help each other.
Thank you. Adrian, I know you have a question for him, but Ray put his in there first, a question for Dave that says, thanks to Mission and Service for encouraging and making it easier for individuals to channel funds to our ministries. Has there been or could there be consideration for Lewinsville to study the needs and assist as a congregation with members making their donations to LPC for allocation to priority needs? Dave, are you on?
I'm on.
Okay.
Ray is usually a great but difficult question. I will take it back to the committee to discuss reallocating funds. The reality is that we make those decisions largely at budget time and allocate those funds. And the organizations that we work with, that we fund, come to expect that money. And many of the organizations that I could rattle off the names, Miriam's Kitchen, Homestretch, the Falls Church Homeless Shelter, the McLean Falls Church Children's Center, and the list goes on and on. Those organizations have all been impacted by COVID and had their budgets and their needs. Share is one of our partners, had their budgets and their needs impacted, grown. So it would be very difficult to take that money, the money that we've already allocated, and sort of shuffle it around. Would be happy to entertain this kind of forum, or even coming to a mission service meeting and talking about what the priority needs are. Where can we best spend the additional funds that we have, if there are additional funds. So, I mean, not much of an answer, but about the best I can give you, Ray, but great question.
Thank you. And Kathy posted on the chat the link to our mission partner page too. So Adrian, thank you, Dave. Thank you very much. And we'll be working with you. John, Adrian Steele has a question for you.
One thing that the Deacons Fund does some of what Ray's talking about, because they are now doing priority COVID related gifts. So the Deacon Funds might be a way of doing that without affecting the long-term budgets of the other organizations. John, this week at the Board of Supervisors meeting, a couple things that aren't maybe not totally directly related to COVID, although one I think is, you mentioned the disproportionality of the COVID on the Hispanic community. Elsewhere in the country, it's disproportionately on the African-American community, and perhaps as well the Hispanic community. And in addition to the speed up of the body-worn cameras, the chairman announced the formation of a task force on equity and opportunity. Could you explain a little bit more what that's about to us here? Because that equalizing opportunity and equity would help with some of when things like the COVID have occur. What that's about. I think that might be interesting.
Yeah, we have committed as a county, the board on behalf of the county school board, to a policy of one Fairfax, right, where we're trying to ensure that the decisions we make, the things we do, take into consideration the fact that, you know, that we need to be equitable from a social and economic standpoint, which, you know, means focusing resources on and assistance in areas that maybe haven't gotten it in the past. It's a really good program that, you know, will help ensure that everybody has an equal, I think, opportunity in Fairfax County to succeed, especially what have been the marginalized communities up to this point. I think what the chairman is really trying to do is put more detail on that plan. I think it's tough to live in this community and not recognize the inequities that exist, but coming up with a plan to address them and to try to make this a more equitable community. Those solutions aren't as obvious, and I think that's what he's trying to do with this. It's the chairman's committee. It will advise him, and he will then come back to the board with recommendations.
Thank you.
Thank you, John. Okay, so one quick clarification and then a question from John Cluett to Jorge. Ray, did your question refer to additional donations to mission and service rather than the original budget, or did you mean the original budget? Ray.
Okay, I may as well show my face here. Hi, Dave and everybody. Good to be here. Glad we're having this session. Hi, John.
Hey.
We're going to be bugging you about climate change sooner or later, but but I know you haven't forgotten that issue.
Okay, so Ray,
yeah, Dave, some churches are deciding that as congregations, in the name of a congregation, they want to be on record publicly doing something to respond to the increased level of need created by the pandemic. And I keep hearing from people saying, in my circle, saying how lucky they are. They're doing okay. But we're all aware that there are a lot of people right
Ray,
now.
I think you've frozen.
I'm
no,
frozen.
all right. No, he's not frozen.
Okay, just on mine, I guess.
Yeah, no, he's
Okay.
moving.
Okay. That here we're talking about needs in our own community, not some village in Africa. And I think there'd be some people, I'm one of them, certainly, and I'm sure there are others who would be ready to contribute out of their abundance to help people in our own community who are in need. And I'm guessing that there would be some who would be quite happy to do it in the name of our congregation and not as individuals. I mean, I brought this issue up with the Mission and Service Committee before. You may know that, and because we didn't have any mechanism like that, as some churches have created, I just decided to do my own research and made grants to 10 different organizations in the community. But if Mission and Service would feel called to do something like that, I would just be happy to send a big check to Lewisville and let my generosity be expressed to the community in the name of Lewisville Presbyterian Church. That's
Through
what I was
Mission
talking about.
Service. Through the Mission and Service
Yeah,
channel.
not tampering with the traditional level of the Mission and Service budget and our traditional partners, but focused only on additions to those traditional levels.
But through that
If I can add, if I
manage
could add just a couple of more comments along that, I 100% agree and am in alignment with Ray on that. From both the initial sentiment to hopefully what this kind of a forum can spur on. And we talk about that with the Faith and Public Policy group being, is this just to educate the rest of the congregation, or should we be taking action, both individually and perhaps as a congregation? This may be one of those areas that we get real strong alignment, blue, red, you name it, behind trying to do for others in the community, and perhaps under the name of Lewinsville. Should people like the Mission and Services Committee agree, and would they like to identify one or two of these initiatives? That was one of the questions that we need to take forward. We won't need to discuss it here, but I think Ray's spot on with this, that we need to address this as a group.
Thank you. Right. And we do talk about that. Faith and Public Policy is always debating how we can do education into action. So thank you for making that connection, Jerry. We got a question here, and thank you, Dave and Ray. We have a question from John. Jorge, what is the geographical range that you cover in your organization, exclusively Arlington and Fairfax, or do you go to, say, Manassas and Prince William, the surrounding counties? If not, can you recommend what people in those areas might turn to, services that provide as you provide?
Yeah, right now we are mainly supporting Fairfax, Arlington, and the city of Alexandria. It's in our plans to expand to Prince William County and eventually provide services in other localities. But as you know, the challenge that we have is that the high concentration of Latino families and immigrant families that there is in Fairfax County is enough to address many people. When I was talking in my presentation, I told you it's 200,000 people that we're talking about. There are organizations that you already know, like Northern Virginia Family Services, that has been around for many years, and they are serving that area. But the reality is that the Manassas, Prince William, they really need a presence of organization like ours. And another thing that I want to emphasize that I think is important is that now that we're having that conversation about equity, our organization is an organization that has the boots on the ground. And I can tell you many times the level of frustration that comes from our parent support specialists, because they have to navigate, these families. And then in the meantime, they're being harassed by their landlords. They are stressed out. And we just need to make sure that we figure out ways that we can respond faster. It is taking between 3 weeks to 6 weeks for getting these families to get assistance. So when they finally get the assistance for the month of May or April, now they are behind May and then June. And that's something that I've been bringing up to the county as the challenges that we have. I can tell you, talking about equity, one of the things that is important to understand too is that we are an organization that, we are the people of color. We are the ones that everybody's talking about, but we are the ones that also need the resources. We had to hire 4 additional staff members to be able to respond to this on a part-time basis. And we were able to repurpose some of the dollars that we have from the contracts, but that money is going to dry up in June 30. And then July is a new fiscal year, then we're going to have to start all over again. So that's what I'm saying. Please consider our organization as an organization that maybe you can adopt. And I would be happy to have anybody of you to become part of a committee where I can provide you with all the information and all the realities that we're facing in Fairfax County, in Arlington County. And if we get a phone call from somebody from Prince William, we help them. If we get a phone call from somebody from Manassas, we help them. But the reality is that, we need to figure out a way that we can respond faster. I would love to be part of that equity committee that everybody was talking about, because the reality is that right now, when those $20 million were distributed, EduFuturo didn't get $1. And the reason is because we were not considered part of the safety net at that point. After having to participate in public hearings, send letters, speak up, we finally are getting to the point that, the county heard us, and we're very pleased with that. But the reality is that they need more assistance. And there is a way that we can do this in an organized manner, in a systematic way, so that we are not all with the scattered efforts that are not really helping the way that we have. I love what you are doing, and I love that we're connecting today, because that's what we need. We need to work together in a more a concerted and efficient manner.
Jorge, I have a question. What is the size of your staff? Just out of curiosity.
So at this point, we have 11 people dedicated to provide services to Fairfax County. And the size of our staff is a total, we are at 18, and we also have part-time people. So that's where we are now.
Okay, okay, great.
But that's not enough. It's not enough.
Not enough.
If we were going to have an ideal group of people to properly respond, we will need at least 4 full-time employees that are fully bilingual, that can help navigate the services that are available and also provide the assistance that many of these families need. And don't forget this, 60% of the children that we're supporting are US-born citizens. So we might have issues where, you know, some of the parents may have not resolved their immigration status yet, but we are talking about the future of Fairfax County and the future workforce that will be, you know, helping us when we get to the point that we have to retire. So I want people to understand that this is not an issue of being, you know, brown or black or white. This is an issue of a community that needs to be supported, and they need to be uplifted. I can tell you, with Edu Futuro, we love every time we see, you know, that we got a student that went to college and they then graduated, and now, you know, they are making $80,000 a year, and now they're giving back because they are now mentors or volunteers in our organization. So I would love to talk to you, you know, in more detail at another time, so then you can learn a little bit more about the organization and how we are breaking the cycle of poverty. Because we have metrics that are demonstrated that we're actually breaking the cycle of poverty.
That is a very important thing to do. I just want to note, in case you didn't see it in the chat, that Scott has to leave to go to speak with his dad in the hospital. So we're very happy he was on here, and good luck, Scott. So do we have any questions? I don't see any in the chat, but does anybody have any questions for any of the speakers, or any clarification or any final comments or anything for Mr. Faust or anybody? Anybody raising hands? No? Okay. Excellent. Well, I want, on behalf of Kathy and myself and the rest of the committee, thank you all for being part of this. I think it was very enlightening for a lot of us. I think we have a lot of work still to do, but it's a little more clear what needs to be done. And oh, Ray, did you want to say something else?
Yes. A couple minutes ago, I think John, Faust, Jill, and both of you were talking about wanting to return to normal.
Yes.
But I hear a lot of people, yeah, but what's normal? Do we want to return to the old normal? I hear sometimes the phrase, and I love it, about building back better. And I would be interested in hearing from John whether there's discussion or research or brainstorming at the county level about how we might learn lessons from the pandemic, so that as we hopefully sort of move beyond the crisis period of the pandemic, that we may emerge as a stronger and better county, rather than just returning to what we used to be.
Building back better. I like that. John, would you like to respond?
Yeah, sure. You know, I feel that every year we try to improve the way we operate in Fairfax County. It's never boring. However, this is, you could, it's probably not the right term, but huge wake-up call for many of us who, you know, have been active for a long time, but really we're seeing needs in Fairfax County that were somewhat, they weren't real public. So
I think you need to mute. Okay. Go ahead, John.
Yeah. So the answer is, yeah, it's going to be different when we come out of this. You know, we've been focusing for the last couple of years on this concept of One Fairfax. I think we knew it was needed, and now more than ever, we know why. The needs that exist in this county are really significant. So I think it's going to reprioritize or it's going to change our priorities in some respects. We're going to focus on populations that, with a little bit of help, can contribute and can improve their own lives, but also contribute even more than they're currently contributing. We're seeing the depth of poverty, and at the end, the things we can do are, with transit, with affordable housing, with education. I think we know what we can do, and I think we're going to see them become a more of a priority in Fairfax. So, yeah, I want to get back to normal in the sense that I want to meet someone in a restaurant and have a good meal and so forth. But we're not going to go back to where we were. This is life-changing in many respects, and it's going to make in the world, it's going to be different going forward.
And John, just to make a follow up on that, I'm with you on that 100%. And I love to see that businesses like restaurants and things are until we get back so we can sit inside and have a nice meal close together, all packed in at the McLean Family Restaurant where I see you often. But they have adapted so there's the tables outside, the seating, the parking lot at Jay Gilbert's is full of people eating, and so businesses are slowly, until we get back to full normal, to see the creativity that businesses and, my hairdresser came to my house. She brought a full-length mirror, put it out on my patio, and she cut my hair out there.
Awesome.
It's great to see the small and large businesses adapting. So yeah, I love that. Anybody else have any comments or questions? And if not, I just want to say thank you, John. Thank you, Jorge. Thank you, Rini. Thank you, Dave. And Janera's off, but thank her too. And, this conversation can't stop here. And as Jerry pointed out, our Faith and Public Policy Committee on this issue and others are always looking how to educate our congregation and others, and then take action steps. So, all suggestions and comments are welcome. Does anybody, Kathy, would you like to say, if my co-host, Kathy, who's been behind the scenes doing everything, my co-chair, Kathy, anything to add?
No, just thank you so much to everybody. I think this really was a productive conversation, and we got a clearer picture of what's going on in some of the areas. And those of you who are on the committee, let us know when you are available for a meeting so that we can do. We're working on scheduling our next meeting to schedule our next programming. We will have programming in the fall, and we are currently scheduling it in flexible mode so that we hope we can be back in the church. But if not, we will be in this mode, which worked reasonably well, I think. So
very well. Thank you, Kathy, our behind the scenes wizard. We appreciate that. All right, well, with that.
I would like to close with something that I think is important for all of us to know, and is that we cannot forget that this is a nation of immigrants. This is a country that has been made by the immigrants, and we are all on the same boat. So let's not forget that. This is not an issue of blue or red. This is not an issue of race or ethnicity. We need, the new normal has to be a normal that is, give them the tools, teach them how to compete, and then whoever is the best, that's the one that gets it. So let's come together. Let's work, hard to make these changes, and let's learn from what has been happening. Because if we don't, then we're in deep trouble. So thank you, everybody, for the opportunity.
Amen.
Thank you, Jorge. I have to say, when you say on the same boat, my family came on a boat here first in the 1620s on one side, and then the other family came in the early 1900s from Italy on a boat. So that's how I think on both sides. So that's an excellent point. Thank you for ending on that. So everybody, have a wonderful day. Enjoy this beautiful weekend, and we all have work to do.
Thank you.
We do.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right. Bye.